Hi, this is Luke Carlson, and I just want to take a moment to say happy birthday to the Fitness Business Podcast, celebrating 2 years. I've been a guest on the show, but more importantly, I consume every episode and every show, and I look forward to that next episode to come out so that I can learn from it and my team can learn from it. So congratulations to Chantel and continued success in growing the podcast. Thank you for what you do for our industry.
Active Management are proud to be the premier sponsor of the Fitness Business Podcast. For everyone this week in the FBP family, we have a free blueprint to select champions so you can get your team culture hustle mode on. Just go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/active.
Hey everyone, you're listening to the Fitness Business Podcast. I'm your host Chantal and this is show 107, which means we are midway through our second birthday celebrations. For those of you who have been with us for the whole journey, thank you. And to those of you who are new to the show, welcome along to the family. Regular listeners will know this week's guest very well. Justin Tamsett, or JT as we know him, has been a regular on the show since episode 1. For anyone that doesn't know JT, let me set the scene for you. JT has spoken to over 172,500 people face-to-face, delivering 291 presentations in over 18 years. This year, he has trained in a different fitness business model every single week as a casual visitor to get the true customer experience. JT has conducted 168 meetings for the Industry Leaders Roundtable for club owners and personal trainers in Australia and in the US. And today, he's joining us to talk about the 7 C's to building a winning team. MyZone, the wearable technology partner that enhances paid programming and drives customer engagement. Learn more at myzone.org. As you heard in his bio, JT has a pretty hectic schedule. With speaking events, active management membership, and the Industry Leaders Roundtable, there has to be some secrets to keeping organised. So we start today's interview hearing about exactly how he stays on top of a busy workload.
Yeah, I have a wonderful VA, Alicia. She keeps me on track. But we use an app called Basecamp. I find Basecamp is just sensational, although it does fill my inbox with stuff that I haven't done, but it's a great project management tool. I think it would be the best description. So I use Basecamp and I use Evernote with my coaching clients. So them are 2 apps that I would suggest.
Yeah. Any kind of systems or rituals that you sort of swear by? You mentioned in the pre-call Quickfire 5 about how important it is that you have a workout in the morning. Would you say that's part of your daily ritual? Yeah,
look, I train in the morning, and then generally in the mornings is when I do all my creative work, and then I'll do my operational-based stuff in the afternoon.
Does that just, you find you more effective that way?
All the oxygen allegedly is going to my brain after a workout, so that should make me more creative. Right. So that's why I'll do my writing and my prep in the mornings, and then in the afternoon I'll try to balance the bank account.
Good stuff. Now, last time we caught up, you and I had just come back from IRSA in the US, and this time you have pretty much literally just stepped off the plane from the UK. So tell us, what did you get up to over there?
So I spoke at 2 conferences, Paul Bedford's retention conference and Doug Miller's virtual roadshow. Mm-hmm. So that was a great opportunity to speak at both of those conferences and kind of get to know the UK market. I don't really know the UK market very well. So that was a really good opportunity to get in there and have a look. And, of course, as you know, when I go away, I tend to visit gyms.
So you visited, 1, 2 gyms while you were away?
Well, I trained at, I think, 7 gyms in 6 days. No. 8 gyms in 6 days, and then I did a walking tour around London with Paul Bedford looking at gyms as well. So most people go to London and I guess check out tourist attractions. Yeah. I go to London and check out gyms.
Hey, it's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. And tell us, with the sessions that you did, what did you present on?
So I did an onboarding session, like how to onboard members for Doug Miller, and then I did a session for Paul, which revolved around, which I thought we might share today, thoughts on using a metaphor of a locker room and a sporting field. What we do in our locker room gets us ready for what happens out on the sporting field.
I reckon that sounds like a pretty perfect topic for us to cover off today. So, am I right in saying there's how many 7 steps to that?
The 7 C's.
Okay, do you want to start taking us through those?
Well, I guess before we do, it's important that we understand that, in business, when we enter the coliseum of competitiveness, we've got one single goal, and that's to win. But in this day and age, we often have a secondary goal, which is to survive. So daily, when we go to work, we're in the heat of the battle trying to win against our opposition, whatever that definition may be, so that we can say that we won the game at the end of the day or the end of the week or the end of the month. But as you know, regardless of whatever level of sport you played, once you cross that white line and the competitive juices start pumping through your body, your eyes become fixated on the win. Mm-hmm. And so you're more focused, you're more emotional, you have greater mental arousal, and this becomes really challenging, therefore, to adjust your strategy while you're on the run. So I guess using the metaphor is before we actually get out on the field, we want to get our shit together in the locker room.
Yeah.
So, there are 7 C's. So do you want me to go through them?
Yeah, let's go through them.
Okay, so the first one is culture. And culture may well be defined or even created from the top down in the business, but it really comes to life from the bottom up. And it's your team, it's the staff that you employ that will help or hinder the success of the culture. So it means you've got to get the right people right from the start who are going to live your culture.
Mm-hmm. So that's our first one, culture.
Culture, yep. Second one is contagious. Did you know that when you have a feeling and it goes through your whole body, that it actually projects outwards? And research indicates that people up to 3 meters away can sense your feelings.
Is that right?
Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but I'm just trying to think of who it was. I have a feeling it was either Mo Hagan or Petra Kolb, but one of our former guests talked about happiness being contagious. So I guess that's the same sort of philosophy.
That's exactly right. Mm. So in other words, how you feel is broadcasted to your team every minute of the day. And your great culture is built but then maintained with the positive and contagious energy. You and your team have to have optimistic and positive energy every day in the locker room so that it goes out onto the field.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So if we're thinking about that in terms of gym owner and the staff within the gym, it's so important that we've got that we're portraying and feeling that way so that our members are feeling that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Correct.
Cool. So culture, contagious.
Number 3 is consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I was told as a level 2 rugby coach, if you are not consistent, you will lose the trust your team has in you. And when you lose the team's trust, you lose the locker room. And never a truer word has been spoken to me in my coaching career. So as the leader, the person who is running the business, you have no choice. You have to be consistent in your leadership style, your approach, your attitude, and your philosophy.
Mm-hmm. I like that one.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good one too. Okay, number 4 is communicate. So communication is the foundation of your leadership and your team's success. We often believe that the best communicator is the most articulate or the most motivational speaker who can get the hairs on the back of your neck lifting up. Mm-hmm. That's only half the communication equation. The other half is listening. And the person who has the ability to listen, process information, and then use that to make the decisions that are in the best interests of the team is a great communicator. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need to work on.
Yeah, 100%. I think it goes hand in hand. You might remember Michelle Bowden spoke about how important communication, we talked about communication skills, but she really spoke about the listening side of things. You've just mentioned, and that goes for whether you are the owner of the gym or you're managing the gym or you're a personal trainer within the business.
Yeah.
Having those listening skills is absolutely so essential. Okay, so that's our first 4. What's number 5?
Number 5 is connect. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a strong communicating and collaborating team will lead to a connected team. Now, you might have the most talented PT team, the best group fitness instructors, you might have amazing gym instructors, you might have cracking salespeople, and you might have the most hospitable front desk team. But if they're not connected, you're going to lose in the game of business. When the leader and the team connect, there is absolute beauty in the commitment, the teamwork, chemistry, and performance. So what we need to remember is the connections that you create in your team today will be the bond that strengthens your team tomorrow.
So
do you like that? That's pretty deep.
I like that. So you're talking about the connections amongst the team members and the management?
Yep.
Right.
And then your team members and your members.
And your members.
So being a connected team is really critical. Mm-hmm. And I think, in the world that we live in, technology helps us in so many ways connect with people, but that's virtual connection, and we've got to peel that back, and we've got to improve the connection of face-to-face. Mm-hmm. I read this great article that suggested that we should ban mobile phones in staff rooms, so that instead of people sitting on their phone and updating their social platforms in the staff room, they actually have to connect with the other staff members. Yeah. It's a bit different.
There was the Simon Sinek. It was like a video that he posted that was all about millennials and everything. And one of the things he talked about was, 20 years ago when we went to a staff meeting, it's along the same theory, went to a staff meeting, we'd sit in there and talk to each other about how the weekend was and what we're up to. And now you walk into a staff meeting and everyone's head down just checking their phones, and there's zero communication around the boardroom table. Yeah. So, maybe it's not such a bad idea to ban.
It's a bit different.
It is a little bit different. Not everyone will agree with it, but not a bad idea. Okay, so what have we got? We've got 5?
Yep.
Okay, 2 to go.
Number 6 is commitment. Mm-hmm. So we need to spend time as leaders demonstrating our commitment to what we're trying to do in the business rather than just talking about it. As leaders, our actions speak very loudly, and your team need to see, hear and feel your commitment. When your team knows you're committed to helping them be their best, then they'll reciprocate that commitment and give their best. Many of us as leaders believe that with greater responsibility or power, that the team actually starts to serve them rather than you serving the team. You've got to help them grow. And so one of the in phrases at the moment is becoming a servant leader, so that we leave a legacy with every staff member, every team member, that we've had an impact on their life and made them a better person.
Luke Carlson was the first one that I heard talk about that servant leadership sort of mentality within the business, and that's one of their, I know for Discover Strength, that's one of their business, not philosophies, it's one of their pillars that they build their business on, is that servant leadership sort of philosophy. So, okay, so we've got 6 out of the 7. What's number 7?
Number 7 is care. Mm-hmm. Simple one. And the greatest organisations on the planet care. They care about what they do, what products they create, what services they deliver, and what impacts they have on their community, plus, of course, their staff or their teammates. When we have care within our DNA of our business, we will increase the probability of winning the long game. With caring in your team, they will play hard regardless of who they're playing against or the state of the business. So, we want to build care into the business. Okay, so that's all 7. Do you want to just quickly run through 1 through to 7 one more time of those C words? Seriously?
Yeah, I've written them down, so,
Okay, here we go. Culture, contagious, consistent, communicate, connect, commitment, and care.
So, JT, in your experience, if our listeners out there are thinking, okay, that's a really cool list, and maybe we are ticking 3 out of the 7, maybe we're achieving 5 out of the 7, what advice would you give to them about steps to start to take to make sure that they can tick off all of those boxes within their business?
I would love to tell you the answer to that, but you're going to have to come back to FitBizspiration tip.
Okay, well, we can do that. We can move back on.
But what I do want to finish with is this, and there are 2 words that characterise teams who are always improving and leaders who are having their team always improve. And those 2 words are that your team is humble and that they're hungry. Always hungry for future success and always humble about what they've achieved.
I love both of those words. They're so important.
They're good words,
yeah. Yeah, they're really good words. Okay, so 7 C's.
The 7 C's.
And 2 H's.
And 2 H's. Hey, you thought about that?
We've just changed the presentation.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so you mentioned it already. You stole my thunder, Fitbizration.
Yes.
Okay, give us your Fitbizration. So what I was hoping you'd share with us is some tips for fitness business owners and managers to really look at growing and succeeding in their business over the next 12 months, and maybe you can weave that into my former question about what they can do with those 7 C's. We'd like to thank our sponsor, OneFitStop, for their support, and we highly recommend all fitness professionals go to onefitstop.com to find out how their software will enable you to take control of day-to-day management in your fitness business. OneFitStop's scheduling, client management, programming, and payment collection tools will set your business up for success.
So my first bit of FitBiz operation is this. Once we're playing the game of fitness, it's too late to improve. It's near impossible to coach or upskill a team member without losing momentum in the business. You've got to get your locker room right, and your team will then perform on the field. So that's number one. Number two is that I would use or suggest you use a 90-day plan when implementing a new strategy. So in the first 30 days, you collaborate with your team to design the strategy. Now, that might take 10 days, 15 days, but you give yourself a limit of 30 days to collaborate to design the strategy. And then days 31 through to days 90, you implement your strategy and you run this new strategy. Days 76 to 90, in other words, the last 2 weeks, you evaluate your strategy before cementing that strategy into your business. There's my tips. Yep. Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question.
Good one.
You talk about a 90-day strategy. How long would that generally last for? Is that a 12-month strategy and then you revisit that in 12 months' time, would you say? Or is that a 3-year strategy? Or
Look, that's a good question. I think in business, the people that get bored with strategy the first are the owners and the managers, even the team. Mm-hmm. If a strategy's working, why change it? Mm-hmm. You know, for me, you consistently reevaluate your strategy or self-evaluate your strategies on a monthly or quarterly basis. And if it still works, don't change it. Just
so I guess that is the key, and that is the reevaluate on a consistent basis. Because
Correct.
If we do the strategy for, we do a 90-day strategy and we come out of that 90 days and we don't look at it again for 12 months, then we're in trouble.
Absolutely.
So we need to make sure that consistency is the key and we're going back and just rechecking. And I think probably thinking about how the market around us changes in that time as well is really important to take into consideration.
100%.
Okay, tip number 3.
You don't have to get the strategy perfect. You just got to get it going.
Applies to everything, doesn't it?
Well, I think we strive for perfection, and if we strive for perfection, then we never implement.
Yeah.
So you don't have to get strategy perfect. You just got to get it going.
They are great takeaways, JT. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our 2nd birthday month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
very
you
exciting.
very much. Yeah, we're pretty excited here. So it's great to have you back on the show. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Precore Quickfire 5.
Luke Carlson is the founder and CEO of Discover Strength in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And many of you will be familiar with Luke because he first joined us on show 91. It is such a pleasure to be welcoming you back to the show, Luke.
Hey, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, Chantel. Thank you so much for having me.
We're going to kick off today's interview with the Precore Quick Fire 5. So do you want to start off by telling us, why do you do what you do?
Chantel, I'm incredibly passionate about exercise. I'm passionate about strength training. Well, I'm equally as passionate about leadership and management. I think the most important work that a person can engage in is managing and leading other people. So why do I love what I do? Because I get to focus on developing leaders and developing managers, and I get to lead and manage every day around an organization that's really built upon technical work that I'm in love with, which is exercise and strength training.
And what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
That in order to grow, in order to compete, in order to be relevant in this industry or any industry as a business person, you better be committed to reading
And we know that you're an avid reader, and anyone that listened to show 91, you will absolutely know that about Luke. And tell us, this might fall into the same category. What's a personal habit that helps you become better at what you do?
So, obvious one would be reading. I'm not going to go with reading. I'll say that the habit of taking a clarity break, which just means that once per week, there's a very structured time, 1 hour, where I get away from the office and just have a blank notebook in front of me, and I start thinking about the issues that the organization's facing. I think about some of the problems that are on my plate, and with that blank canvas in front of me, I start to take notes and jot down ideas and start to develop some strategy as to where we can move around and where we can make progress around some of those issues. And it starts with just thinking about the goals of the business and the vision of the business and what you're currently up against. But that discipline to step away from the business and get a clear head for an hour once a week has been powerful for me.
And Luke, tell us, what's one book, podcast, or blog that you would recommend and why?
Well, firstly, and I'm being completely honest, Chantel, it's the Fitness Business Podcast. I've been on top of every single episode for the last, I would say, 10 months. I mean, I've listened to them all, but for the last 10 months is where I became aware of the Fitness Business Podcast and really became obsessed with it. But man, a book that I would recommend if you really, really are committed to becoming a great manager and a great leader, there's a wonderful book called How to Be a Great Boss by Gino Wickman. It's a relatively new book. It's been out for 7-8 months. And I just think that is such a simple read and such a powerful read.
Luke, you can't see me right now, but I have a smile from ear to ear.
Well, good.
And tell us, last but not least, what will our FBP family learn in next week's show?
They're going to learn a little bit about how we figure out the vision component of the business. What is the role of the leader in terms of crafting the vision and bringing that vision down to the ground? And probably most importantly, how do we establish a shared vision? So it's not just our vision, but the entire organization understands where we're going and how we plan on getting there, and we're all rowing the same direction. How do we break away from all the cliches on that topic and understand what's actionable?
You know what? We are so lucky to have Luke back on the show coming up next week. So I want to say thank you, Luke, so much for coming on and joining us today for the Pre-Call Quickfire 5.
My pleasure, Chantel.
That interview is coming up next week in show 108. Until then, thank you for joining us for another week of the Fitness Business Podcast. And remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.
Great show this week that you should be suffering DOMs, delayed onset mind soreness, as you are overloaded, and that's when your mind is strengthened. You and your business have been strengthened thanks to the amazing support of our premier sponsor, Active Management. Check out www.activemgmt.com.au, only if you want to strengthen your business and your leadership. Don't forget, all today's links and notes are found at www.fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, where you can also subscribe and never miss a show and maybe win a prize. Next week is another incredible guest with Chantal, so get ready for more Fit Bizpiration.